No one told me to record. I completely forgot to record. All right. So we have that one. The only other example that I have that I was able to find, because I had so many pictures of these things, was this one, which wasn't all that great. But once again, it did kind of capture the components and what they were trying to do. And they did it in their own way, right? They did it a little differently on how they kind of mocked it up. They mocked it up as like a box that had the name of the component, and then they had what would be over here, I'm gonna guess the methods maybe, or the props, the state, I think, yeah. So this here, this one is the most obvious. State is here, and then it looks like form, and then set state here. So however it is that you decide works best for you and or your group, okay? I can't really tell you, hey, do it just like this. All I can show you is some examples on how it might work best for you, okay? Cool. Tomorrow, I'm gonna actually show you the repo where these things came from so you understand the additional planning that they went into that I kind of required at the time for them to do that, okay? So I'm gonna get out of the photos. All right. What I wanna do is walk through a app, one small app. We'll kind of mock it up, and then I want to do an exercise where we all, we're going to break you up into groups, and then you will also kind of draw this out. So I'm going to ask, let me put a poll. How many components do you see? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, just give me a second, I'll select this right out. Now, before I select it out, let me show you the functionality. Really basic thing. Color switcher is something I always teach, love teaching this. You can break almost any of the advanced concepts down into this thing. It is a color switcher. It has a form and it has buttons. And if you click on the buttons, it changes the background color. So already I can convey clicks, right? There must be some sort of click event, and that click event must be calling something, and that something it calls must change the background color of something else, right? Okay. Well, if I type in a color, pink, there's a form, another thing that has an event attached to it, that if once again I click, this thing changes the color, right? So dynamically, this event has been added to this pink color, right? The form is cleared, you know, I don't know, like yellow maybe, just another color, yellow. Once again, the form gets cleared, everything looks good, right? All right, so here's the question I'm going to propose to you. First question is, how many components do you see? And by see, I mean envision. You're meant to build this thing out in the end. And how many components do you actually envision this thing being broken down into?
Joe, do you mean like distinct component classes, or like individual like repeats of that same component? Would we count those?
Oh, no. I would say if you see something like a circle component, if that's what you envision, that itself would just be one component. We wouldn't be saying like, because I have 6 circles, there are 6 components. It's the ultimate parent hierarchy that we're concerned about, okay? So it looks good. 7, 8, and 15, 16. Looks good. We got about something C2, some C3, some C4. No one sees 5. Cool. Everything in here could literally be its own component. Like the H1 could be spun off as its own component. The paragraph text. There comes a point in time where you just have to make a decision. Does that content itself belong to something bigger? Does that content need to have any sort of props passed to it? If not, and it's always a standard color scheme, that's the name, it's always going to be the name, then perhaps it doesn't need anything more than just an H1 inside of the app. Cool. All right. Looks good. Looks good. Why don't we start with, let's see, Pooja, where do you see, what two components, the two direct components do you see here?
The first one that I see is a form, and the second one is the display of the color. Form component I will put into the app itself and the H1, and for color codings I will have a separate component. So basically two components.
Okay, what would you call the color coding components? What do you think you'd give it a name?
Maybe display color.
Okay, display color, all right. And they would render what? Just curious.
They would render the whatever color you put into the form, you add a color and
Okay.
it will render that one.
And what is this element? If I had to draw an element, what would that be?
This is, you mean HTML element?
Yeah, an HTML element.
What is this? Button? No, not a
Okay, it could be anything, really.
button.
It could be a button, could be an LI, could be a div, right? Could be anything, could be a span. I'm just curious. I want you to think it through all the way down to the very end. And so in app, we're just saying that the form lives there, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. Let's clear girl drawings. Okay. What about, let's take a look at, I don't know, Sarah, what do you see here? Because you say you see three components. What are the components you see?
I see app, and then I see a component for the form, and I'd also include like that header in the form, like with the form as one component, just because those, two elements, they aren't really doing anything.
Sure.
And then I see the third for like the swatches for the colors.
Okay. So right now, once again, I think we're just back to having the app component, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have two other things, right? I did what? Red for the form.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to do red for the, what would you want to call this?
The color swatches?
Okay. Color, maybe swatches, right? Once again, you're going to give them some pertinent naming conventions. And what kind of element is this thing going to render?
Mm-hmm.
What are these things again?
Oh, I probably, I don't know what I'd put them in, but I guess just like a div or something.
Okay, just a div, right? So now we're just going to have a bunch of divs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. That makes sense, right? In your design, where is state and what is state responsible for?
State would be an app, and it'd be responsible for changing the colors, and then also changing the
Well, those are methods. Let's stick with maybe whatever is in state, right? Because the methods themselves would be responsible for activating the background color, and
yeah,
that would be the method. But what properties here would you think should be there?
Background color.
Okay, maybe BGC, right? Okay. And at the beginning, it would probably just be nothing. Maybe it's just white. How would I get each one of these is an individual color. And inside of here, we're going to have to like run through some sort of array of colors and map, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to create your divs with a BGC color, right? Whatever the BGC color is going to be equal to, yada, yada, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get that data down to swatches? And what in state would you store that as?
A prop.
Okay, but in state, should we have something like this?
Oh, like a colors array. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like red, blue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, just getting you thinking about what would need to get passed, because this needs to get passed down here. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Good job. Let's clear it all. And let's see what we had for 4, right? Owen, why don't you walk me through what you think the 4 would be here? And I'm guessing we all start with this, right?
Yeah, mine kind of goes the same way that Sarah's just did, except for instead of having each of the colors just be rendered inside of the color swatches, they would be their own component.
Okay, so walk me through it. So I'm going to have app up here, right? So here is app. Right,
Yeah, and you'd have a component of the form.
Okay, so let me get a form component. Sweet. Okay.
And then you would have a component that's around all of the colors.
Okay.
Or
So
all of the displayed colors, yeah, there.
we're going to have this. And
Yeah.
we'll just put here maybe colors just to keep it. Let me just put the blue around the form, right?
Yeah.
Where does that text live? Where does this text live? Here, color scheme. Where's that coming from?
What are you talking about? I put that in app. It's not going to change.
Okay, so that's an app. Cool. And where do you see the last component?
Each individual color that's rendered. I'd give it its own component in case it eventually has state that it needs on its own.
Sure, right? And so in your version of this, in state, what do you see? What does state contain here?
I mean, it seems like it'd be the same to me. So you'd have the background color and then the color as well. The array.
Okay, boom, boom, boom. And then BGC, right? Whatever the background colors. All right, so what about this though? That form, right? How we managing that form? How have we managed that form? I think that's one thing that maybe both Sarah and you might have overlooked. Anyone want to like convey where the information we're capturing should be stored and how we store it and how have we been storing that?
Well, previously we had the form inside the app with the values being like stored in a state.
Okay. Was form, I remember when Jerica did hers, did she not have state here in form? Was that not it? Maybe I'm mistaken. Was there not something, maybe value here? And as the user typed in the inputs, we updated this when there was a, maybe a handle submit up here or a submit here, right? We would then call something that might send it up. How are we going to get the data from form, even if we didn't do that, right? So let me go back. Even if we didn't do what I just said we should do, how do you get the data from form to app? How are you doing that? Because I don't see anywhere here in state that it says store the value of form. I don't see it.
Don't you need methods?
Okay, so you need methods in form to push it up, right?
Right.
So can we agree that something in form needs to go up, correct? And how are you when you start typing in these letters? If I type in the letter R, and then I type in E, and I type in D, where are those letters being stored? Where are they being saved? Kind of tricky, right?
In a new array?
In an array or some sort of string of text called value.
Oh, oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue.
I think you've seen it and you know it. What I'm trying to convey here is even breaking down this most basic app, right? The things that you've done up to this point still require a lot of thought when you have to do it on your own. Some of the feedback I got yesterday was everyone liked hey, let's do the delete spontaneously. There's no lecture. Let's just do it. and it had you thinking what to do, right? Pseudocoding the steps. There was no like, follow the lecture, do the thing, you can't get lost. Didn't require much thinking. It required just following steps. After you, when it comes time for you building your apps, there is no follow the steps, right? The steps that you're going to follow are the steps you defined, you outlined. So what I'm trying to get you to think about is when you see even a basic thing like this, where would you do it? Now, that being said, could form hold on to state? Is that possible? Yes, we think it's possible? You can say yes. Yes, Joe, I think it's possible. I know Thad's is shaking his head. And by that, I mean you can say yes. Go ahead and say yes.
Yes, I think you can. In the set state thing.
Yes, I want some interaction here. It's not just me just drawing. So if in state, what should we call it?
What do you mean, what should we call it? Like the color name or something? Yeah, or value, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm going to say value. And so when we have our method here, like handle change, right? This handle change will then set state and grab or set that in. So every time you click in the box and you type R gets stored here. When you click E gets stored here. And when you click D gets stored there, correct? Okay. And then we'll have something like, I don't know, maybe a handle submit, right? When you submit either this button, you know, it's either the button or you just hit enter, right? Because enter can trigger a submit. That should grab this value, pass it up to app. App then updates colors, puts the color red inside of here. What happens when you update state? Update state triggers what? What does updating state do for our app?
Doesn't it refresh it?
Yeah. I'm going to say that when we say it refreshes, refresh, I'm going to say, let's call it a re-render, right? The default method that we have is render. Render renders the app itself. Rendering returns some sort of HTML. And so what the app says is state is changed and I need to like notify, I need to re-render. When I re-render, I have components that are inside of my render, so they must re-render. I must send them the data because the data has changed. Then they must make decisions on what things need to be updated, right? Colors is gonna say, hey, you know what? I got a new color, so I need to like add a new color component, right? These other components, like these over here, they don't need to be re-rendered. They are exactly as they are. Nothing's changed. They are good, right? How does React know that those elements exist? What's the one property when you do this looping construct that these elements should have as part of a loop?
Index.
Yeah. So is equal to index, right? And up to this point, index has been equal, you know, to its index position, right? It could be anything. We could have index equal to the color, as long as all the colors are unique, right? As long as we have some correction checking there to be like, you can't type the word pink again because it exists. It's so important that you can't type it in because we're using that pink color as an index key. You can't have the same key, otherwise it's going to break. I mean, you could have color plus index, right? So, you know, any which way that you want. It could be any combination of this, okay? It's a little messy, but I think it gets the point across, right? What we're trying to do with this. I'll take a picture of it. It is a little sloppy. Okay. So that being said, I'm going to clear everything up. Clear my drawings, right? What I'm going to do now is how I would like you to do this when we approach the app. So everyone, the one thing I realize is, I have the tool to draw. You don't have the tool to draw. And yet you work as a group and you need to draw, correct? So I just opened up Google Drawing. It's free. You guys could use it. You could share it. You could work on the same thing. This will help you as part of that design. And if I wanted to draw out that design, right, I'm going to insert, maybe a shape. I'm just going to insert, where's the insert again? Shape. I'm going to insert a circle. And so here, I can just copy. I'm going to do the design that we just came up with, right? The 4-component design. So I'm going to say this and this, right? That looks pretty good. I'm just going to position them nicely, right? This will go kind of off center right here. I think we all agreed that that should be the app. This should be the form. This should be, I'm going to say color list, and I'm going to say color. Okay? I'm keeping it as basic as I possibly can, right? I think we might have agreed also that up here, there should be state, right? State should equal something, right? And in here, maybe we should have colors or color list. Array, maybe color array, color list array. It's going to be equal to the colors that maybe there's some colors by default. So if there are colors by default, we can say red, blue, right? Okay. And here, we all suggested maybe there's a BGC, like background color is equal to, and we could say maybe white by default, right? So it has something. Okay. We also agreed that maybe here, if I copy this and I paste it, I drag one of these down. Form also probably is going to have state. Form will have something like value is equal to that, blank. So we know that form lives here. I'm just going to put it right next to it. Form lives there. State lives right here. Nicely set up. And then we also know that what gets passed down here, right? So if I want to draw a line, let me see, can I insert a line? Should draw a line, right? A curvy line. So here, whoop, can I draw this? No, this is just straight lines. Right, stop. And then here we can say also, once again, I can just take, stop doing the lines. Undo. All right. I'm going to insert again. I will insert, here, I'm just going to take this again, copy, paste it, and we can have something over here that'll say like props, right? It should be getting props. Props is going to be equal to whatever we're going to pass down, maybe like color array, color array is equal to, I don't know, this dot state dot color list array, right? And so we know that this, I'll just get rid of this. We know that it's props, right? That's going to get passed down. Does that make sense what I'm trying to accomplish here, right? Even here, we have things like handle change. That's a method. Handle submit. These are also methods, okay? And you can like write out your logic, what this thing should do. It should, or it will update state with the current input value, right? Easy enough. And then submit will somehow call some parent function that will push the value up to parent, right? And then parent will do something with it, okay? See how clean cut that is? It makes it really able to understand what's happening. So you building out an app just from scratch and just doing it, and great, you know how to like put your components, but do you really know what's happening? If you had to build the most basic app, could you structure it like this first, give it context, right? And then work with it after that. I mean, even in app, what's missing from app? Can anybody tell me what I should be putting here in app? Are there any methods that I'm missing in app?
Yeah, there's the one that when you click on it, it changes the background color.
Sure, right? Change maybe BGC, right? That's it. Change BGC would then change the background color. Okay, and so that means that we need to have some sort of component. If BGC is going to be a color, right? Change background color means that what are we going to change the color on? Anybody ask that question? Like, what are we actually changing the color on this page?
Aren't we changing the color of the divs that we said they were?
Okay, no, I'm grabbing the color, but what's changing? What's the background color? What background am I targeting?
The event.current target.
Oh, no, not events. This background color of green right here, where is it being applied to?
The body.
The body, okay. So if I kind of go back to my diagram, how am I going to apply the background color of white to the body here? Right? Does React have control over the body? Where did we mount our app, do you think? Inside the body, probably in some sort of div, right?
It should be like the root div.
Okay, right? So maybe the root div. Although you can, in React, we can do something like documents. I can use old school JavaScript documents dot, I think it's get elements. Maybe it's document.body. I have to take a look. Maybe document.body dot style is equal to dot style dot, I'm just putting BGC here, is equal to whatever it would be. You know, this dot state dot BGC, something like that. You can target other elements. Like you can use JavaScript to target other things, or there could be a parent element and we give it a background color, right? This doesn't necessarily have to be the body. This could be the parent element itself. The whole div could have just taken up the full width and height of the screen, right? Dot container, dot wrapper, something like that. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Because I want you to think about it. This has 4, right? Now I'm going to show you one more before you go into your little thing. I'm going to show you this. Okay. So this is something I've taught for like the D3 and React workshop that I've done. Now you see this. I'm going to show you. There's a lot of changes going on here. There's like a lot of levers. This shows you dynamic content. If I change the year, you can see this 2011 here. Boop. Change to 2009. These values change. The order. Korea is up top. But if I do 2005, oh, Korea is still up top. I think Korea has the lowest number. That's why. But Russia and Luxembourg keep changing. These sliders change the values that are there. If I only want to see one country, boom, I see one. If I want to see them all, I see them all. I can do ascending and descending. How many components do you think are in this thing? All right, I'm just going to shoot out the other poll again. Now that you've seen stuff, how many components do you think make this thing up, make it work? I just shot the poll out. Think about it, but give me some answers, some feedback. 3, sweet. There we go. Now they're coming in. Jake, Uja, sweet. Keep going. Because this is the kind of stuff I really want you to consider this, because when it comes to building, say, your portfolio site, and I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of you are going to be like, portfolio site, I'm building it in React. Guaranteed, hands down, you're all going to be excited about using React for your portfolio project. And when you approach your portfolio project, you are going to have a ton of components, ton of components, okay? And those components can start to get out of hand and unwieldy, where you define state only to realize, man, that's the wrong place for the state for this thing. It should be up here. And now it requires a complete refactor because you pass down methods 3 components deep. What you're building are basic application architectures, right? This is stuff that we're building in classes. Fairly simple because we have to get over these more complex concepts, like how to use the tool first, right? All right. So we got a good number there. I think it's 3, 4, 5. You know, if I had 6, maybe some people would probably be like, there's 6, there's 7. There's lots of them. Okay. Here you go. I'm going to show you how many components are here. How many components are there? 1. 1 component does this thing. Okay? Just 1 single component. Can you break it down further? Sure. Does it need to be broken down? Maybe. What I'm showing you is that some things can be built as 1 component, or some things can be built as a single component. Here's the same color switcher app. 1 single component done in like 50 some odd lines of code. 1 single component does the trick for this thing. Or 4 separate components do the thing. Okay? To be approached differently. How you see it is how your mindset has been created to break things down further. Usually when I do this particular color switcher, we build it as 1 component, and then the exercise is, hey, wouldn't it be cool if the colors themselves were their own component? Well, let's do that. Let's break out the form, and we start tearing it down, creating this structure, passing things up and down now to simulate props and state. Okay? Sound pretty good, right?
So, Joe, is
Yeah.
there an advantage to having multiple components versus fewer? I mean, is it more efficient to be building them out?
Yes. So I'll answer that by saying, why do we create components? So maybe that's the question to ask. Why do we have components? Why did React say, hey, let's break this page down into smaller things? Now, we've been doing it now for a week, more than a week.
If you didn't have components, your app would be, hundreds to thousands of lines of code long, which is super pain in the ass to deal with. So by making components, you can compartmentalize different things. So like, okay, this is the such and such component. We can put all the stuff that belongs to there over here, and it just kind of clears out room in your app.
Okay. So you're saying, I like what you said, you're saying compartmentalize, right? All right, if I don't spell it right, don't hold it against me. Okay. Well, I could create a function, Jeremy, that's given an array, and I could output these things right here. I could do that relatively easy, and I don't need to have like constructor or render method. I could just pass in an array of colors, grab the LI, and output these things relatively easy. So doing React doesn't necessarily mean less code. It doesn't mean it's going to be less code, but
yeah, like I don't mean less code. Like what I mean is, like for this, you could have done this, and you've showed us that you could do it in one little component, which is fine. But as you scale up your project, it doesn't make sense to have all those things in your app component. It makes more sense to take those big chunks out and put them in their own component.
Exactly. It does make more sense. Even if you had like an app file, right? So I just have a regular app.js file. This is not a component, but I had some supporting functions. I had a function here and a function here. I might take those functions out and put them into a helper JS file and then just import them in Node so that my app.js file has lesser or fewer lines to manage, right? My app.js should be the core application code, and the helper function should be in their own file, not taking up space in app.js. You did the same thing when you did when you were working with Node and Express, right? Or even Rails. You broke things up into separate files, especially Express, because Express could have allowed you to put everything in one file, but you know that would be unwieldy, right? It'd be hard to manage so many files. Breaking them up makes sense. Okay, what's another advantage to breaking them up into components? So compartmentalize, sweet. What's one more thing?
You can reuse them and just pass them different props if you want them to have different, different values inside of it.
Yes, and I think right here, like that's the little gem. Reusable, components are reusable. If I have another app that needs to output LIs, these are actually LIs that I've chosen, or divs that have a background color. I got a component that does it. Easy enough. I can reuse this thing and a dozen other apps that do this. If I have a form, which I'm going to have in almost any app, then all I need to do is like find a way to grab what it is, change maybe the placeholder text, change this just to be submit, and now I have a reusable form. Hey, so when working on the project, I'm going to be like, hey, Pooja, we're going to build this out. And when you finish the component, hey, Lauren, use the form component, right? It's got all the styling. It's got all everything. You don't have to think about it. I don't want you spending 1 second writing a form component because you're blowing away our money because you want to build something from scratch. We have form components. We have these other components. Use those things. That's kind of where we're going with this, okay? So these are really some of the two most important. Compartmentalize the code and reuse them. I mean, the other advantages of just using React or things like, which we really didn't go into, the virtual DOM, which is this virtual representation, which really speeds things up. This equals speed, okay? It's more efficient. It's faster. That's part of the reason why they came up with it. And part of the virtual DOM's power is like using those index keys to know what thing needs to be updated when. So I just don't rewrite all of the LIs and rewrite their colors. I only add or remove or change the one thing that needs to be changed. Okay? So these are some of the advantages of components and then, you know, React just in general, right? And knowing where your state is, knowing where your data is, and knowing what needs to get passed down. Okay. So I think we get the idea of where we're going with this, okay? What I'm gonna have you do now is this. We are gonna be building this thing out today. This is our day project. Okay, some of you might have went ahead and kind of maybe known what it is, others not. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna build this thing out. I want you to ask how many components there are. Like, I want a drawing like this of something where you're breaking it down on what you think it is, what should get passed down. Now, I'm going to show you the functionality. I have to do, so I can add a new to do, work in groups to draw out this app. Boom, something gets added. I can take a look up here and see that there are completed items and to-do items. I could click on an item and it goes to completed. I can uncheck an item and it goes back to to-do. What else do you notice when I click on completed and to-do? What else changes?
H1.
The H1 changes, right? The H1 is dynamic. Maybe the H1 is pulling its value from state. Maybe it's doing a ternary operator. Could be that too. Whatever. Then we have these over here. These also trigger something down here, right? How do you think we change the view here from completed to to-do? What do you think does that? Any idea?
I will guess there's some sort of on-click method that resets state to whatever your new state is.
Okay, cool. And then how would I make the decision on what view to show down here? That is key. The same state would be kind of evaluated for this too, right? What's the word when you have some logic that determines what you should do?
Toggle.
What's that?
Toggle.
Well, toggle. All right, well, toggle's kind of like the event kind of thing. What do we call the logic in React?
Conditional.
Conditional logic, correct. Same conditional logic that can be used here can be used here. So we can make the decision on what we want to output, either a separate component called completed, or a component called to-dos, or just two sections of HTML that has all the to-dos and all the completed divs, and you could just run, if it's this, run this, else run this, whatever it is. But this is kind of what I'm hoping, you kind of come up with as much detail as you can. I'm not asking you to like, you know, bang your head against the wall and get every last thing. I'm only going to give you so much time because we need to build it, right? But I really want us to, when we approach this thing, how do we do this? What's key in doing this? Because when you're off in your project, this is going to be key to the success of you building it out and understanding it as a team, what needs to get done. This is your pseudo coding. I have seen, or I have heard from previous students that have gone on interviews that when they're asked React, they are asked to draw out on the whiteboard what they think the component hierarchy is for a website. The person may just go, hey, go to your favorite website, and they'll go, and they're like, great, can you mock up what you think the component architecture is for this, right? It's one of those kind of open-ended questions that could go on for hours and hours and putting in state. What they want to see is that you can look at something and see the natural flow, see the reusability. If you can see that, you can draw it. If you can draw it and mock it up, you can build it effectively and efficiently. And as a team, we can do that. So let me Slack this out. So this is, I'm going to take a picture of this. And your computer. All right. And so what we're going to do, we'll go into groups. I'm going to give you, say, maybe 20 minutes to work on it. About 20 minutes to work on it. And I want you to use a drawing. Somebody be the drawer and then just share this thing. So if I was like, you know, color switcher React, you know, comps, and I save it, done. I can get a shareable link, give it to all of you, and you'd have it right now, right? So that's my little diagram. You would have access to that. What I want you to do is somebody mock it up, both of you design it, and then I want, when I say we're coming back, I want it Slacked out so we can talk about it, so we can have a conversation about what you came up with, okay? So Jerica's got the groups. There we go. Awesome. I'll pull you back in about 20 minutes.